Therapists, it's time for us to get real for a second and talk about your goals and aspirations for a change. As therapists, I think we're really good at helping our clients get in touch with their goals and aspirations and create lives that they love. But let's face it, I think sometimes we can get so focused on the transformation of others that we can forget about our own life trajectory, right? Our own hopes. If this is sounding familiar, I am so glad that you're here with me today on this episode of Love, Happiness, and Success for Therapists. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. I've been doing this for a while. Like I'm a therapist, I'm a psychologist and a marriage and family therapist and a very proud board certified coach. And I'm also a clinical supervisor. And over the years, I have had the great privilege of working with so many therapists at different stages of their career. And many times, I think putting so much energy and love and care into really figuring out what they need to do and who they need to be of service to their clients, which is incredible. It is noble. It is fantastic. But the reality is that sometimes that can come at the expense of thinking about themselves. Again, noble, selfless, nothing wrong with it. But the harm is that long term, I think therapists can become so selfless and other focused that they actually get disconnected from themselves. And that doesn't do anybody any favors long term. Burnout is a very real thing in our profession. And if you're not paying at least some attention to who you are, how you're feeling, how you're doing, where this is all going for you, you can become vulnerable to burnout to the point where it can become difficult to even maintain this profession. We have a lot of therapists exiting the profession because over time it starts to really not feel sustainable. This is the kind of personal growth work that we all need to be doing as therapists to certainly stay in the ring and have satisfying, vibrant, productive, long-term careers, but also be taking care of ourselves, because taking care of ourselves is a fundamental part of this profession. We cannot separate our own well-being from that of our clients. So that's why we're talking about goals today. And here's the truth. If you are not clear on your goals, your personal goals and your professional goals, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to thrive. And when I talk about goals, I'm not just talking about, I want to grow my practice or XYZ. I'm really talking about creating a holistic life plan that feels balanced, it feels fulfilling, and also financially abundant. You as a therapist deserve to have security, a life that you can afford to maintain, right? So that can all be part of it. But today we're really turning that spotlight on you. So stick with me throughout today's episode, because we're going to talk about how to do a personal/professional inventory that can help you get clear about the goals, the value-based goals that you might want to set. But I'll also be walking you through a game plan to make sure that you actually achieve them. Because remember, I'm not just a therapist. I am a board certified coach, and this is what coaches do. So you can get some of that energy from me today, and I hope it benefits you. Okay, so jumping into this, first of all, let's talk about some of the personal and professional goals that you should really be thinking about, even just once a year. Right around the new year time is always a good time to take stock. Interestingly, I think also August, September can be very conducive to self-reflection, but just to have that every once in a while where you're like, who am I? How am I doing? Is this still working for me? What's next for me? So that you can develop just an insight into your own trajectory and have some control over it. Different things to be thinking about is, first of all, just one, and if you want to turn this into a journaling prompt for yourself, like, how are you doing personally? Like, How are you feeling emotionally? Physically, how is your physical health, which is very important because if you're like most therapists, what do? We sit in a chair for 8 hours a day, right? So, like, how are you doing physically? Nutrition, sleeping, exercise, like all the basics. But also, how are you doing mentally? What is the internal soundtrack to your life sounding like lately? Is it uplifting and hopeful and optimistic and positive? Or is it focusing on hopeless, negative type things? And what is that doing to you on the inside? I think periodically, especially if you are working with a higher need population, or if you're doing a lot of trauma work, just to check in with yourself, like, have you sustained some damage? Vicarious trauma is very real, and we all need to have practices and things that we can do to be managing this in ourselves. Because, we can't show up fully for our clients if we're running on empty, but it's also not fair for us to be perhaps giving so much to our profession at the expense of our own just fundamental well-being. That is not okay. And it can creep up on you. Little things like if you can't stop thinking about clients, or maybe can't stop thinking about clients to the point that they are keeping you up at night, or it feels like your weekends you don't have space. Like maybe you're having emergency calls or texts or emails from clients, or you have started a private practice that has become like a monster where there's so much to do and there's nobody else to do it. And you really can't ever turn off. So just have that emotional check-in, right? So the other thing that you need to be thinking about is what are the practices or the just daily routines that are helping you manage some of this emotional resilience and ability to cope, maybe with some of the heavy stuff that you're encountering every day. And so this could be just checking in. What am I doing lately in terms of, again, that basic foundational self-care, but like mindfulness practices, journaling, your own therapy or coaching, giving yourself permission to take a break sometimes. But I know that I have to do this periodically personally, because if I'm going to be okay, that doesn't just happen. Like, I need to be doing certain things. For me, it is journaling, sleeping, exercising, nutrition, a variety of other things. Like connections are really important to me. So anyway, but just take stock of, am I still doing the things that I need to do in order to be well, right? So be thinking about that. Another important domain to be thinking about that I believe does tie into this both personal and professional wellness domain is your continued development, continuing education. Are you learning new things? Are you being challenged? Are you growing in your competency or self-awareness? And there's an intersectionality here between personal and professional. In my opinion, the best therapists know themselves deeply and are engaged in meaningful growth work that supports that. And that's, I think, one of the things that I love the most about our shared profession is that when we are doing a good job at this, it doesn't just help us become more competent as clinicians, more effective helpers. It really does grow us in a way that for me throughout my career has felt really positive and meaningful, because the things that I'm doing on the job to grow and master my craft, so to speak, like I get to take those home and have better relationships or feel better about myself and my life. So it's everybody wins in the situation. But so goals here could include things like even exploring your own biases or thinking about clients that you have found to be challenging, right? Like growth opportunities for you, reflecting on your personal triggers or countertransference stuff that's coming on, and really leaning into structured ways of obtaining feedback, like certainly feedback from your clients, either things that they tell you or things that you observe, like clients dropping out of therapy inexplicably. This is all information, right? But also leaning on clinical supervision or professional consultation or mentorship. If you're part of a consultation group, that I sincerely hope you are, it's like, what are your sources of feedback in addition to your personal reflective process, which is also really important. Along those lines, I think it can be very important just to be reflecting on what is my support system these days? Because you are, of course, a pillar of strength for your clients and you are unfailingly there for them, but who's holding you up? So be thinking about who are my people, and family, friends, community, all that counts. And I think that what is also different and important about our profession is that we are dealing with some dark stuff sometimes that I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel inhibited from talking about with civilians because it's pretty dark, right? Or heavy, or we're working with people who have lived through some very difficult life experiences. And if you are connecting with your partner or your friends, we'll certainly want to be able to share some of those experiences when people ask us how we're doing, to be authentic and to be vulnerable. But I think there are confidentiality issues. Who can we really talk about? There's a situation with this client, but also it's like, they may feel overwhelmed or upset or wouldn't know what to do to support us. I think in many ways it requires having relationships with somebody who is in the same place, who has the life experience and the professional experience and who knows what we're talking about in an intimate way. And so personally, that is why I place so much value and such a high priority in cultivating relationships with other therapists where there is a community. So this could be consultation groups. It could be just one-on-one relationships. And thankfully, I have some wonderful personal relationships, like fantastic friends who are also therapists. And so 95% of the time, we are not talking about therapy. We are having much more fun than that, right? But then every once in a while, I'm like, I'm having a meltdown, have somebody that I can call and talk to. And that's really important. So I just want to be putting that out there for you as I believe, fundamental, non-negotiable thing that is part of this career is having that support system, and for you to be thinking about an intentional way, like who is that for you? And if that is not as robust or as reliable as you would like it to be, perhaps that could be a goal for you over the next life segment so that you can build that. Okay. So also, additionally, I would like for you to be doing some thinking about your overall quality of life. How are you just as a human? How are your personal relationships? If you are partnered or married, how is that going? How are things with your kids or hobbies? And I think there's also that intersectionality with like foundational self-care, like your physical health, your energy levels, your internal landscape, but like how is this manifesting in your life as a whole? When you look around your life, your home, where you live, what you do for fun, right? What do you do for fun? And are there goals there? Because I think also as part of our professional responsibility, I think that we have a personal responsibility to be enjoying ourselves, at least to a degree. And so just to take stock of that every once in a while. How's that work-life balance going, right? Are you taking your work home with you? If not literally, like maybe you're not doing notes or doing work things, although maybe you are, that happens too. But like thinking about your clients, can't get people out of your head. Your work is impacting you mentally and emotionally to the point that you're not really present with your family. Or if you are a solopreneur and experiencing the reality of that, it is a ton of work to get a practice going. So like just taking stock of that and without judgment, right? It's like on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing in each of these different domains? And then very lastly, I would like for you to think about, how are you doing in terms of the work itself? Are you enjoying your work? Is it personally satisfying? Do you feel effective? Do you feel like you are in the right environment and that you are able to serve populations of clients with presenting issues that you feel a calling towards, and that you feel like, yes, this is my people. This is what I'm here to do. This is my niche. Or, as is true for many therapists, you took a job perhaps with an agency or community mental health or a practice where you need to do whatever comes in the door, being a generalist, but are maybe, when you think about your caseload, I don't know, 70, 80% of the time, you are working with clients where there's proficiency, you can do it, but it's not as meaningful, it's not as satisfying. You feel like maybe you're not operating at the fullness of your potential. Whereas if you think about maybe a smaller section of your caseload, like, who are the clients that really light you up, that you feel the work is incredibly meaningful, you feel perhaps especially talented in this area, that your personal strengths are congruent with what these particular clients are trying to achieve. And so again, this is all without judgment. It's just a reality-based place of, how's this going? And because this kind of personal assessment is so important, you can absolutely just be listening to this, asking yourself questions, doing some journaling, all good. And because I believe this is so important, I actually did create an assessment tool that's totally free. You can access. It is my banishing burnout assessment for therapists that goes through and asks like a bunch of different questions about how you would rate yourself in some of the different domains that we've talked about in terms of your environment, your growth trajectory, your professional support system, and just as like a reflective exercise. And it will provide you with a snapshot of like how you're doing in each of these different areas. And then it will also deliver a customized report that you can use just with suggestions like, okay, maybe you are vulnerable to burnout right now. Because honestly, if any of those different dimensions that we've been talking about aren't being at least attended to over time, they can really begin to drag the whole thing down to the point where clinicians can get burned out. And so this report, again, to give you visibility, but will also give you recommendations about action steps that you could take to begin to correct this professionally. So you can grab that totally free if you go to my website, growingself.com. You'll see in the main nav a tab that says for therapists. Tap on that, and then you'll see it right there. Banishing burnout assessment for therapists. Grab that. It'll probably take 10 minutes to do. You'll get your free assessment, and then that will help you hopefully just get clarity and direction, right? Okay, that's the personal inventory. But the other dimension of this is really around professional growth goals. And this is also important, and I believe related to our personal well-being, because like, I don't know about you, but when I feel like I don't fully have the competence or the knowledge base or the skill set to be able to help a client who is coming to me for help and who is trusting me to be that partner, I feel really bad about that. Like, I want to be that partner for them. And I think, well, it is also absolutely valid to have enough humility to be able to say, okay, this is beyond my scope. I cannot, in good faith, be working with this client because they need something that I cannot deliver. So how can I help them by facilitating a referral to someone who can be the person that they need and that they deserve? I think that there's nothing more noble for any of us to do in our profession than to be like having that humility, but also the self-awareness to know when to refer. I think that is great. And I have recorded podcasts on that topic, like when to refer clients. So check that out if you'd like more information there. But at the same time, I think that there needs to be a balance between when is it like, nope, hard stop, I have to refer you, versus working with a client or desiring to work with types of clients that require you to grow. So it is not like you're operating totally without your scope of competence, but it's pushing you into this development zone. And it comes from the personal exploration, right? Thinking, I love working with these kinds of clients. I would really like to learn more about obsessive compulsive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, or career growth and goals, helping people have better relationships, helping people figure out their life direction. Like that is what I love to do. And I don't know that I have all of the skills and the competencies to really be as effective as I could be. And I would like to begin focusing my professional niche on these more specifically in order to attain mastery, in order to be more helpful, but also in order to start sculpting my professional experience to be more of that and maybe less of this other stuff I've identified that I don't like as much. So first of all, be thinking about what does light you up? What do you love the most? What is your ideal professional niche? And if you would like help in that, I have a podcast on that subject as well. Is how to identify your niche as a therapist or something like that, which you can also find on my website and any of the other podcasts that I mentioned. Just come to growingself.com. Again, that For Therapists drop-down menu, and then you'll see a link to the blog and podcast, and you can just scroll through and find everything you're looking for or use a search bar. It's all right there. It's all for you. But it is that clinical expertise and thinking about what it is that you're not just doing, but what it is that you want to do. And so if it's trauma, if it is relationship coaching, if it is developing more competencies around anxiety disorders or life transitions, growth and goals, right? So maybe even less of a clinical focus and more of a coaching psychology focus, right? But thinking about what do I want to focus on? Specializing can do so many things because, first of all, it can create a reputation, honestly, as being the go-to expert in your field where you are differentiating yourself. You have the ability to create more success for yourself in private practice because of that. But additionally, you are doing the work of obtaining more education, perhaps certifications, going to trainings that help build your skills so that you are genuinely good at what you do. So this can take so many different forms, but it begins with figuring out who am I and where is this going and what do I want to do more of and what do I want to do less of. And along those lines, it is thinking about, are there different modalities that I have not really learned yet that could support the development of my skills and my success in private practice? And I know that I want to work with people with anxiety disorders, and I'm good with CBT, and I'm competent with ACT, but I think it's time for me to really dive into one of those kinds of things, or to be thinking about, I really enjoy working with people who are high functioning. They're not coming in with a diagnosis. They're having a existential crisis, or they're trying to figure themselves out, or they maybe want to feel more confident. They're working on emotional intelligence. They want to have better relationships, and like realizing that those desired outcomes are typically not in the area of, we don't learn how to help people with those things through what we learn in counseling school or psychology school. What we are learning how to do is help people who are distressed or experiencing disorders that need to be resolved. We don't really have a good system in place for helping high-functioning people who are focused on growth and goals and what do I need to be doing differently? What are the skills that I need to be attaining? How do I create my desired outcome? We don't learn how to do that. The school, the methodology that does help clients do that is in coaching psychology. There are theories, methods, techniques that are totally different than what we learn how to do as therapists, but that are for the purpose of helping people create different outcomes. And it's really a shame, I think, that many therapists do not know that. They have not been exposed to coaching psychology, and as a result, they may really want to work with high-functioning clients who want to create different outcomes for their relationships or their career, but they are not fully equipped to do that. And so they struggle to feel successful with these clients. And it's really a shame because this framework exists. It is evidence-based. There are peer-reviewed journals backing it. There's certifications. There's this whole thing. And so just personally, because just to let you into my own life experience, years ago, as I was thinking about what was personally most meaningful and important to me, I realized that taking care of therapists, like helping the helpers, felt really exciting and important. And because, and that's part of the reason why I'm like here doing this podcast, is if I can support a therapist in being okay and being happy and fulfilled and healthy and satisfied, like it doesn't just help you, although that is important to me, is to help you, but it is also thinking about all of the different lives that you will touch over the span of your career. And it's this impact thing that anyway. So that is why I wound up devoting so much of my career personally, not just to seeing clients, but to really focusing on like counselor education and the development and the well-being of clinicians. And also too, years ago, because I did this work that I'm advising you to do, which is thinking more about, okay, who am I? How's this going? What excites me? What are my growth opportunities? What are the clients that I want to work with? Where can I grow? I recognized that coaching psychology felt very exciting to me. And so I did a training program. I became a board certified coach, and it changed everything. Like it helped me feel much more confident, competent, do the work that I wanted to do, build the business that I wanted to build. And I also became aware that there is just a dearth of training programs that are specifically for therapists, that are evidence-based by therapists, for therapists to learn coaching psychology and then be able to incorporate that into their practice. And so that is why I actually developed a coaching certification program for therapists. So it was like, this doesn't exist, and I really want to see this in the world. Darn it, I'm going to make it. So that is what I did. If you are interested in pursuing board certified coach credentialing, which I would strongly encourage you to do, by the way, if you are thinking of incorporating some coaching modalities into your practice, because it can be quite dangerous, honestly, and risky for therapists to just like tack coach onto their credentials without really having been educated or credentialed in these methodologies for a variety of reasons. I also have a podcast on that. Why? I think I called it something like, if you're coaching without credentials, you're playing with fire. As a therapist, I think there are certainly all kinds of civilian coaches, business coaches, sports coaches who do not have credentials, and it's fine because they're doing something that's totally different. But for us, when we are trying to thread the needle, and we do have, appropriately so, state licensing boards, regulatory agencies being like, wait, what are you doing? Like that kind of thing. It's very important to have a lot of structure, knowledge, practices, operational procedures, and also just knowledge about what it is that you're doing so that you can protect yourself from liability, not be practicing outside the scope of your practice, also be really being trustworthy to clients. Because if client is saying, oh, they're a therapist and a coach, I want to do coaching, I'm going to do that. And you haven't really learned about coaching. So you're just basically doing business as usual as a therapist, but calling it coaching. Client is going to be like, this is not what I signed up for. And rightly, so many different reasons to pursue this. But anyway, so you can learn more about that on my website, growingself.com. You can check out the coach training program. And also, I put together a free 2-part workshop to teach you, if you're interested, about what coaching is, what it involves, how is it different from therapy, if this could be in alignment with your life goals, and then also the process of becoming certified as a coach, because it is a process. It's really not unlike becoming certified or licensed rather as a therapist. There's an exam, there's prerequisite education, there's an application, there's continuing education credits, like all the things. But you can learn about that as well on my website. Okay, so other professional growth goals to be considering in addition to expanding your repertoire, right? Developing yourself is also related to your business. If you are in a private practice. And so if you have a goal around growing a thriving practice, this could mean a lot of different things. It could be expanding your client base. It could mean improving your operational systems, exploring new revenue streams, potentially building your practice, focusing on marketing so that you have enough clients coming in the door to the point where maybe you could afford to hire a second clinician or take on an intern or hire some help. Wouldn't that be amazing? Maybe you're also thinking about your business model, meaning like how do you deliver value, and also how do you get paid for that value? So perhaps your current model is based on the medical model. You are providing behavioral health care for the diagnosis and treatment of mental health conditions. And because you're providing health care, it is absolutely appropriate that health insurance companies are paying for that. It is medically necessary treatment, which is great. And if you're happy there, that is fantastic. But potentially be thinking about, are there any pain points for a lot of people who are engaged in that model? It's a lot of work, just like chasing down rejected insurance claims and the phone calls, and just to be thinking about, okay, I want to stay in this lane, but are there things that I could be doing to make this easier? Could I hire an assistant to help me with some of this? Like, how much more money would I need to earn in order to hire an assistant to help me with this? So it can go into all kinds of different explorations. Or additionally, I think some people too are like, I don't want to be in network with insurance companies. I don't like this for a variety of reasons, lower rates, the amount of work it takes. So I want to break free from this. But then you have a new problem, which is that if you have been receiving clients because of being on in-network insurance panels and then you stop doing, that's a whole different thing that you have to figure out in order to like, how are clients going to find me? How am I going to get paid? But so thinking about what you want is the starting point for this, because then you can begin to develop a vision for what you want this to look like. And when you have a vision, then you can turn that into okay, what do I need to make that happen? Coaching psychology, you guys, that's how this works. And then for others, depending on where you are in your career, you may have additional goals. So for example, maybe contributing to the field in a different way, maybe adding to the body of literature, writing a book, being a mentor, getting into supervision, like working with the next generation of therapists can be incredibly meaningful. And just remember, like our work can be bigger than just helping clients one-to-one, although that's always so important, but like thinking about, are there spaces for me to serve this profession as a whole? Again, and that's probably my personal value system splashing out into this a little bit, but this is a space that I definitely want to be in. I feel that it's very rewarding to be a clinical supervisor, to help other therapists. So just to think about this. Okay, so now finally, once you have done all of this reflection around how you doing, what are some of the goals that you would like to work towards over this next life segment, then you have to think about, okay, how am I going to make this happen? And that involves setting goals in a different way. So we have the what in mind, but you have to figure out the how. So when you are setting a goal, one of the most important things that you can do is to make it specific and measurable. So for example, I want to become a better therapist. Fantastic intention, but it is too vague to be a goal, right? So something like, I would like to complete an advanced training in trauma-informed care, trauma-focused CBT within the next 12 months. right? So that is a goal, and you have a timeline. And the more that we can do this, the easier it is to track progress. By this time next year, I would like to increase my caseload from 10 clients a week to 20 clients a week. Fantastic. I would like to become certified as a coach so I can stop doing stuff with a medical model and start really focusing on the kind of work that lights me up and that will support my business, honestly. So fantastic goal. And I'm going to complete this training program by the middle of next year, whatever it is. And when we can take these goals, make them measurable, make them specific, put them on a timeline, we also need to be thinking about, is this realistic and is this achievable? Because I love ambition. It's right. It's fantastic. But we also need to think about our capacity for some of this stuff, like being honest about your current workload, responsibilities, professional and personal, right? If you are seeing 30 clients a week and you have 2 little kids and a house and a partner and a parents, there's maybe a friend or 2. That's about all a lot of us can do, right? It's a lot, objectively a lot. But so be thinking about, okay, if I want to achieve this goal by this time next year, I probably have 4 hours a week that I can devote to this and then turn that into an action plan, because small, consistent steps will always get you further than big, huge leaps. It's the little stuff that we do regularly. And then additionally, as we're pursuing long-term goals, we have to stay flexible, at least to a degree, or at least course correct, right? Like we can still keep our eye on the prize, but recognizing that life happens and goals shift, right? Maybe you have different values that become more important to you over time, and that is absolutely okay. So we need to be thinking about where we're going, but course correct as necessary, because flexibility can help us continue moving forward instead of just, that's too much and abandoning it, right? But also without unnecessary stress. So just be gentle with yourself. And then, of course, be celebrating small wins. Like, every step counts. You know what? I'm working towards this goal. I'm working on my BCC certification or my trauma-focused CBT certification. And I hope to do 4 hours on that training program this week. I did 3, and I'm going to go buy myself an ice cream cone because you know what? I did 3 hours, and that's great. And so it could be little things, but maybe even big things. What are the big milestones? And when you achieve those, how are you going to celebrate, right? Taking a couple of days off, go get a massage, right? Because celebrating progress, I think, can keep our motivation high and turn us into our own cheerleaders. So that is how we achieve our therapist goals, that 3-part process of taking inventory of where you are, what you want, setting some goals, but then creating an action plan that helps you achieve them. And so I hope that this conversation has been helpful for you today. And I really hope that you take advantage of all of the free resources that I've mentioned to you. So we talked about a lot of different podcasts, everything from identifying your professional niche to breaking free from the medical model to all kinds of stuff. Find those on my website, growingself.com, blog and podcast. Also take advantage of that Banishing Burnout assessment that will help you just do some of this personal inventorying and provide you with some recommendations. And then also that other training that I set up is like a therapist guide to coaching, which is also what I have baked into this is a career planning tool, honestly. So it's a 2-part training, totally free, but it comes with a workbook that has a lot of journaling prompts to help you get clear about your ideal professional trajectory, what that is, and then if coaching might be a part of that. In part 2 of this training, you'll learn more about what that means, how it works, how it's different from therapy, the steps to becoming a certified coach, and so on and so forth. So take it all. It is all for you. And I will be back in touch with you next week for another episode of Love, Happiness, and Success for Therapists. But in the meantime, take care.